Thank you very much. Can I first acknowledge the traditional owners of this land? Thank you to Uncle Alan for the welcome to country. To the many distinguished guests, the former Prime Minister John Howard, my colleagues, parliamentary colleagues, Julie Bishop, the Foreign Minister, and also Chris Bowen, to Doug, to Ronnie and all involved at the Asia Society, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I also acknowledge the many members of the Diplomatic Corps and representatives here. When the Asia Society Australia was formed some 20 years ago, in the early years of the Howard government, it was in Australia's interests to maintain the momentum in the relationships with Asia established by Gough Whitlam and his successors. And this momentum has been maintained by both sides of politics. Our relations with Asia are complex and they are dynamic, and governments of both persuasions have made and continue to make a collective effort to shape, define and reshape our place in Asia. The Asia Society Australia has played a crucial role in that effort and will continue to as our relations with the region continue to evolve. Tonight's anniversary dinner, which is attended by so many who have themselves been key players in Australia's multi-dimensional relations with Asia, is a wonderful opportunity to reflect on Australia's great tradition in regional diplomacy. Some of you will recall Gough Whitlam's tour of Southeast Asia in 1974. And in a series of speeches that resonate even today, he outlined what we would now call a transformational foreign policy. A foreign policy is much about vision as strategy as about the day-to-day business of diplomacy. Speaking in Singapore to the Press Club in February of '74, he said, "It is a mistake to see our policies only as a break with the past. To do so ignores much that continues. It ignores the steadiness of the Australian people, the consistency of policy formulation within the Australian Labor Party, and it ignores the fundamental fact that our policies are directed towards the future and not against the past." It is this mindset that needs to inform Australia's foreign policy. Gough Whitlam displayed courage as well as confidence, and these are qualities we still need in managing our relations and our future with Asia. Just a few months after that speech in Bangkok, Australia opened its embassy in Beijing, and I acknowledge the work of Dick Wilcott, who's here tonight, and also Stephen Fitzgerald, who played such a great part in forging our relationship with China. And at that time, Gough wrote this: "We seek a relationship with China based on friendship, cooperation and mutual trust, comparable with that which we have or seek with other powers. We need to measure our actions carefully so that we do not give the Chinese the impression that we are careless of our own interests. They are themselves hard-headed realists, and it would be unnatural of them not to take advantage of us or hold us in contempt for apparent weakness." These words offer an encouragement and a warning, an encouragement to develop a relationship comparable to that which we have with other powers, and a warning to avoid what Paul Keating so powerfully describes as the cringe. To celebrate its 20th anniversary, the Asia Society Australia has published a very excellent set of essays entitled Disruptive Asia, Asia's Rise and Australia's Future. Philip Ivanov points out that Australia will need to ramp up our diplomacy in the region and accentuate the Asia focus of our foreign policy. He also notes that the Australia-China relationship will continue to be our most important and complex, though I would add that a reimagined and re-energised relationship with Indonesia is as important. David Epstein warns us against complacency, against assuming we have a greater role in Asia's growth and prosperity than we really do. We have to work at our prosperity, expecting no favours from Asia, but looking instead to the sort of engagement that Martin Blanken calls for in his essay, and that former Prime Minister Julia Gillard called for in her Australia in the Asian Century White Paper. So to deliver on the potential that the Asia Society Australia's essayists identify, we need to be sure of two things: what we stand for, our values, and what we want to achieve, our national interests. And in a disrupted world, we need to build our cultural, economic and political knowledge of Asia. A report published this month by PwC, the Institute of Managers and Leaders and AsiaLink, entitled Match Fit, Shaping Asia Capable Leaders, reminds us of the task ahead. And the headline message is the level of Asia capability amongst the leadership of the ASX 200 companies is alarmingly low. Out of a possible score of 30, the average Asia capability score of ASX 200 boards was 6.42. As my friend and colleague, Shadow Treasurer Chris Bowen, has already outlined, a future Labor government will pursue a step change in economic engagement with Asia. Of course, Asia capability is not just about language. It covers knowledge of Asian markets, the capacity to operate and form trusted relationships, understanding of cultural contexts, and the capacity to deal with government. Australia has a largely unrealised advantage as we seek out our place in Asia and build up our Asian capability. As Tim Soutphommasane says, how Australia relates to Asia will, to some degree, be shaped by how we deal with the cultural diversity within our borders. Embracing Asia starts at home, and Australia's advantage is the capacity of our peoples and our multicultural values. With its distinguished membership, Asia Society Australia is well positioned to assist Australian companies to improve their performance in Asia. It is also well positioned to press for a much more comprehensive approach to the teaching of Asian languages in our schools. The languages of our neighbours must become an integral part of our communications suite. Indeed, the Asia Society Australia is well positioned to encourage the polity as a whole to strongly engage with Asia. So I congratulate the Asia Society Australia for a job well done in its first 2 decades. I encourage you to continue making Australia a real participant in Asia's realisation of its prospects in this century. As we contribute to Asia's prosperity and security, so too will we benefit. And of course, engagement is the key to making the most of the Asian century. So on that note, if you would join with me and stand for another toast. I'm not going to drink out of Julie's glass, I hope. A toast to the Asia Society for 20 years of advancing Australia's engagement with Asia and for your continued advocacy for the national interest. The Asia Society.